Hi, everyone, and welcome to Truth Camp. I'm your host, Crystal Giznichek, with my co-host and wife, Sarah. We believe that there is something you can learn from everyone and want to help share these truths to help inspire and motivate. Thank you for spending time with us today. Now let's get started.
Hi guys, welcome to Truth Camp. I'm Sarah. This is Crystal.
Hi.
I lost at rock, paper, scissors, so you get me opening. And today we're here with Elaine Kennedy,
Hi.
who I feel like is my sister from another life because we just met and we're like,
I was
so
like,
yeah,
I
we're
need to be
talking.
a part of your life.
Yes.
I want to know everything about you.
You guys are social media BFFs.
Yeah,
For a
like
long
had no
time.
idea. And the funniest thing is for the longest time, I'm like, I couldn't associate the jewelry with you. And I'm like, Muriel, Muriel? And I'm like, no, that's not her name. Her name's Elaine. I could never keep it straight. So, but anyways, we're going to talk to Elaine about all of the things.
Yay.
And I'll let you start and just who you are,
Oh, man.
a little bit about you, and then
Sure.
I will just start getting intrusive.
Okay, well, my name is Elaine Kennedy, and I have a jewelry company called Muriel and Joyce, and that's why a lot of people who know of me think my name's Muriel, but it's not. It's Elaine. Muriel and Joyce are my grandmothers. That's who I named my jewelry company after. And so I make jewelry, but my other bread and butter is I also read tarot. And I have a couple other kind of magical exploits that I engage in as well. I just started doing a moon water class that I offer to people as well. So the one thing is I do regular tarot, but the thing that is kind of different is I do a moon charged bracelet tarot reading, which you guys are both very familiar with.
Yeah.
To my best clients. But basically on new and full moons, I will, for whoever wants the service, I do a tarot reading for them, and then based on their reading, I create a crystal bracelet that I then charge in the moon's energy, so then you can kind of take that energy with you forward throughout, your day to day, and also you just get a pretty bracelet too, not just a tarot reading, which obviously that's a wonderful thing too, but sometimes it's nice to have a physical embodiment
And the
of
bracelets
that.
are so fun because you never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I'm always I think I'm more excited to see, because I know the tarot read, but I'm more excited to see the bracelet.
Now, are you pretty clear about what you want to use? How do you go about in your deciding of what crystals and stuff that you make the bracelets?
Yeah, so when I do a tarot reading, I'll kind of get the gist of the whole reading, and sometimes the reading will very obviously signal someone's having a tough time in this way. Maybe it's around love, because that's what everybody wants from tarot readings, is to know when they're going to get married. But so for so for those people, I might incorporate rose quartz, which is the love crystal, or if maybe they're having issues in a relationship, maybe I'll give them one of the blue stones, because the blue stones are generally based for communication. So it's kind of it's the prescription for what they need. The cards kind of tell them what the universe needs them to know, and a lot of times those messages are coming from you from people in your life or other things, but it's harder for people to accept that. But when the cards say it, they're like, oh, okay. But then if you also get the bracelet, it's just more about intention, going forward to address the issues, and maybe the bracelet can hold that intention for you.
Now, how did you learn about the crystals, and how long have you been interested in that?
Well, I mean, probably my whole life. I always was one of those kids with a rock collection,
Me too.
when I got my first piece of fool's gold at
Yes.
the student book fair when you were a kid, I was oh, I love this. And even my dad, he's a big he canoes and kayaks a lot, so he had found a giant piece of quartz in the river.
Oh, that's
and
so cool.
so that was just always in our house. And I just remember, even as a little kid, I would walk by it and be like, I like you. It just was I like you. But I definitely got more into it when I started making jewelry, was probably when I started learning. And my mom kind of was into Reiki and would talk to me about Reiki, but I'd never had it done. But then I kind of became a little bit interested in it too. But mainly when I started making jewelry was when I started
cool.
learning about them.
Yeah, I actually, Sarah, whenever we were moving and stuff, I found this old suitcase that I had since I was a kid. And I used to collect rocks and different crystals and stuff. And I would like write information about the stones and just like the hardness of them.
Oh,
and
yours
stuff.
was like super organized. It looks
Yeah, I
like
had,
like a little like tool tackle box that you put like all your nuts and
I
bolts.
think it was like a fishing box or something, but it was
Yeah.
like giant and it had all little compartments in it. But it was so cool getting to open that back up as an adult and still be interested in that as I was as a
Yeah,
kid.
that's so cool.
So when did you start making the actual jewelry? Like, how did you get involved and want to go onto Etsy? Did you start it first? Like, what was your journey?
I
like
had my
with that?
daughter. I worked. My former life was in. I actually went to school for film and video production, which that didn't last very long because I'm not maybe a hustler in the way that I should have been to go into that line of work. And also, I lived in Pittsburgh, which there's not a lot of work for. I mean, it's way better now, but when I graduated college in 2007, there wasn't a lot going on. So I did that for a little bit, but I had always worked retail through school, like to pay for school. So when that didn't work out, I ended up just going into retail management. I worked for the Gap for a long time, and that was kind of where I cut my teeth when I moved up through the company. And then I left the company for a while and worked for a company called Francesca's, and I was the general manager. I was just really good at it. It was one of those things. But then I got pregnant with my daughter Aurora, and we decided that I would be a homemaker or stay-at-home mom. And I think she was like about a year old, and a friend of mine was like, "Hey, do you want to take this class?" It was at the Center for Contemporary Craft. It used to be in the Strip District. I think it's still there. But it was basically like you would go and make a necklace, and then they gave you like snacks and beer too. And it was like, yeah, I need
Sounds
to
like
do
fun.
that. And so we went, and it was a nice class. It was just like little basic metalworking. Like they showed you how to like hammer metal and all that kind of thing. But from working at my previous job, the company was like real cheapskate, and we sold costume jewelry. So anytime we would break costume jewelry, they wanted the employees to fix it. So I got really good at fixing jewelry working at this store. And so when I took this class, I was like, I already know how to do this. And so like I literally went home after the class and just got on eBay and was like, buy, and bought beads, bought metal, bought hammers, all the stuff. And it just kind of went forward from there. Like later that year, I did my first craft show, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do craft show, I better have an Etsy. And so it just kind of went from there, and it's kind of steadily grown ever since then.
And now you guys are in that cool group, the Girl Gang Approved, which I love.
Yeah.
I love that so much because you get to see not only the auctions that you do, but you guys always feature other people within.
So I'm part of an artist collective on Instagram called Girl Gang Approved, and I got invited to be in it a while ago. It's an invitation only, like you kind of invite friends or people that you admire. And we've gone through phases of different people. Right now, I think there's 9 of us, but there's metalsmiths, there's kind of me who makes more like assembled or metal jewelry. There's stained glass people who make stained glass. There's a wonderful girl who does like resin art that's really kind of top notch. And so we have auctions for us, but we also do charity auctions throughout the year. Like we just did one for a silversmith. She's Navajo, I believe, but she like broke her hand really badly and she couldn't make jewelry, and that was how she made a living. So like we did a fundraiser for her to kind of help her deal with her expenses when she was injured, and we kind of do those twice a year. And then every day we generally feature another artist. We usually have a theme. Like right now we're doing a citrine theme just because that's the birthstone this month. And we always try and feature artists who have usually under 10,000 followers to kind of help out other small businesses.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love those damn auctions. I love them.
Yeah, Sarah's supporting the small businesses.
Yes. And wait, I felt so bad because the last auction that you did, like, I'll get on there and like bid and completely forget about it. And it was one day after the auction was completely over, and I like got back on, and it's like 24 hours, and I was like, they're like, you won. I'm like, oh fuck, I completely forgot about this. And fortunately, like the vendor, I had bid on something of hers before and won, and she was like, hey, just checking. I was like, I am so sorry. And she was like, no, like I held on to it. So like everyone's so super nice.
Well, she was like, she's like, Sarah didn't pay. And I was like, give her another day. And I was like, and if she doesn't, I'll give her the ring a ding ding.
Shit. I just don't I don't know, like all things.
Well, I said she's
phone.
she's not like addicted to her phone like some of us are.
No,
so.
I just
And
forget.
I'm proud of you for that.
Thanks. It's really not intentional, I don't think.
That's just how you live your life.
That's just how I live
This
my
past
life.
week, I took a social media break. And I went into my phone at the end of like the week and looked at how many my average hours, and I had still been on it for an hour and 45 minutes when I was taking a social media break. I was like, this is not good.
No, what was like during quarantine, I was like, your average is 8 hours. And I'm like, oh, shit.
TikTok got you.
Yeah, straight up. It was 8 hours of TikTok. It was 2 days into quarantine after I've been like, fuck TikTok. It's for little kids. 2 days in, downloaded it, addicted ever
Like,
since.
And then all our friends send us and you
TikTok.
wait.
I
Fucking
think I'm
obsessed.
too old for that.
No, you're not. Listen,
No, I'm already.
She tries to pull me into
I'm
it too.
already spending too much time. I don't need something else.
well, I like nixed fuck Facebook. I was over that, and Instagram I've gotten extremely bored with. So I like am almost all TikTok. Like
Yeah.
I just fucking live for that because it's like, what do you want to be into today? But anyways, we're gonna go a little
So-
deeper into the juicier things that are.
okay.
I was going to ask you, so what brought you into tarot card reading, and do you feel like that's something you're gifted with, or do you feel like anyone can like learn that?
So I got into it. I basically decided after I started doing the bracelets, because Lisa Mort actually asked me to like intuit a bracelet for her, and she's like, I know we kind of have similar vibes and like you feel things from the universe, and I was like, yeah, I guess I do. And but then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a tarot pull for it, which she didn't ask me to do, but that's kind of how it started. And I had been learning tarot for a while, which tarot is one of those things you can spend the rest of your life learning. Even the greatest tarot readers will say that there's more to learn, and it's absolutely true. I do think anybody can do it. I think some people are more are better than others,
Like more in tune?
yeah. And I'm not one of those people who, today, every day, everybody's an empath. Like every single person you meet is like, I'm an empath. Well, I'm a Capricorn. I'm not an empath. I don't even like most people. So like, I'm definitely not. But I think being clear-headed, I read the cards as they are given to me, like by the universe, instead of sculpting it into what I think the person wants to hear. And sometimes that's difficult because I've gotten really harsh messages for people, and I almost always read for people who I do not know. Like like reading for you guys would probably be more me reading for people that I kind of know. Like so anyway, trying to give messages like that to people that you don't know, you're kind of like, are they gonna like,
How are they going to
dox
receive
me
it?
after
Yeah.
this? I don't know, but I've gotten really good feedback about it. Anytime that especially when it's one I've been kind of sitting with, like, oh, I don't want to send this reading to someone, and I've had people be like, I needed to hear this so bad, and this is 100% correct for my life, and I knew this, but I could not accept it. And the fact that you put it down in words and sent it to me, and now I have this bracelet, and that they're like, now I have to deal with it. And I'm like, wow, I couldn't even imagine having that effect on someone's life who isn't like, close to me. And sometimes I do worry. I'm like, is this completely off base? And it almost never is. The only time it's ever off base is when you frickin' do readings for other tarot readers, because they usually want to be like, well, that's not really how I would think that is. Which I love getting tarot readings, and I just am like, you tell me what you need to tell me, because I especially think readers, like, I actually think I read better for other people than myself, or at least maybe I'm the same way. I don't want to accept the message that comes through for me, or I'm just like, I'll be like, oh, I think this is about me and my husband, when really it's actually about me and my mom, but I would have never thought about it that way, you know? So, I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did for
okay,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of things by like feeling and like just your intuition into the cards, or just
When I read, I kind of go through a process of one, like kind of clearing myself, and then I have to like kind of also do some protection rituals for myself, because you can, like, some of those harder readings, I've definitely gotten like a vibe of like, something's really bringing me a message here, and I'm not sure I want that thing sticking around afterwards. And I've had a couple, it was on especially powerful new moons where I keep getting the same cards. Like I'll do 4 or 5 readings on a new moon. Usually on full moons I do tons, but I'll keep getting the temperance card. I'll keep getting the temperance card or whatever. Like I'll just keep getting cards that, and then I'm like, oh, this is like for the collective as well. So sometimes I'll say that, like, on my Instagram, like the next day, I'll be like, oh man, were you feeling that last night? Because I kept getting this temperance card for all you. And so I think this is for everybody, you know? So, and then I'll kind of talk about the card and be like, maybe the aspects of that card are something you need to take with you, you know, throughout the week. Especially the temperance one stuck with me because I did a new moon readings. I think I did 5, and I got the temperance card in every single reading. I use different decks for the readings too.
Wow.
It's not like I'm not shuffling my deck right or something. And I'm like that. I'm a skeptic. Like I am a very skeptical person, but I believe in magic, and I'm also a magical person. So I actually think that's kind of a good balance because I feel like when people get involved in magic, a lot of them are interested in it because of the aesthetic, you know, and they're interested in it because they think it's going to improve their life. And yeah, it's going to, but the same as any kind of like deep personal work, it's going to fuck you up too, and you have to be prepared for that. So
now was your family interested in this type of spirituality, or like was this something that you came in to find on your own?
It was definitely my own thing. I was definitely one of those kids who was always drawn to the dark side of things and macabre, but also just, you know, magical things too. And I grew up in a typical like Christian family, but my parents are very open. My dad is like one of the most biblically literate people that I know, but he's not someone who would ever like try and convince someone that they should be a Christian or something like that.
Oh,
like,
that's great.
He was saved and it was profound for him in his life, but he understands that that's not like for everyone. So I don't know. I also think when you grow up, especially as a Protestant, you see magical things and you're automatically drawn to them because it's very anti like what you are told. I think now that I have more of a language of people that I speak to about like the religions that they grew up in, I think people who grew up Catholic, there's a lot more magic just kind of in Catholicism in general.
It's all ritual.
Yeah.
It's all ritual and, you know, symbolism and, you know, body, blood, like.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Burn this incense and
definitely.
sit, kneel, stand, sit, kneel, stand.
But Protestantism, unless you're like evangelical and you're like, you speak in tongues and stuff like that, if you're just like milquetoast Methodist like I was growing up, you don't get any of that. You know, that definitely. So no, I guess the answer is no. But now that I've started doing a lot more ancestor work and trying to kind of, something people talk about a lot is like their guides, like they're the spirits who are with you. My grandfather died 3 years ago, and I feel him almost more intensely than I asked him at some point. I was like, are you one of my guides? Because he was a freaking millwright. Like he was just kind of go to work, come home. He was a very loving man and took care of his family, but I would never be like, oh, he's magical. Like my grandparents are just, you know, they're kids who grew up from the 30s. So that's not like a part of their life. But since he's gone, he's already appeared to me like, yeah, I'm here for you in that way. And so I'm thinking that maybe I have a magical lineage from his like lineage. I've just kind of gotten that sense. So it's something I'm still working on. But no, my family's like not magical at all. My parents are kind of hippies, and they're definitely so they're like open. Yeah. They would never be like, you can't be that thing. I have 2 sisters. My other sister also has a magical path, and then my other sister is a chaplain. She's a pastor.
Shit.
So
no way.
It's kind of like
but everybody
guides in different ways.
Yeah,
though.
very spiritual. Very.
She's not, and she's also very open. She was a Unitarian for a while. Now she's a Presbyterian, but Unitarians accept everybody of all walks of life. And because before, I actually am kind of like coming back into my religion. I was definitely an atheist from when I was like 15 until probably 35. I think for the first time in my life, I'm allowing like paganism, I would say, is my religion. Is like, now I'm like, oh, I am religious. Like now I do believe in God. I went for 10 years like not believing in God at all. And now it's actually through witchcraft that I found God again, which
Wow.
I'm sure some people would dismiss, but I know the truth.
If you're Catholic, that's where your religion comes from.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. Just for you, just get a little closer to the mic. You wouldn't
Sorry, I keep backing up.
So for you, in terms of like your belief of God, how did you bring yourself of going from like 20 years of like nothing to okay, something?
I think when I decided to accept magic into my life, I realized maybe not like so much as like a capital G God, but I realized that there is like an all connecting experience for humans, especially like together. And I think you could describe it in many different ways, but I mean, pagans believe in a female and a male god and like the synergy that they have together. And that also, we could talk about this forever, but there's also a non-binary experience between the two as well. And so when I look at humans, I see something extremely special. But then I also know humans, and I'm like, I don't know that we just did this on our own. You know, I think we needed help somewhere along the way. So like when I say God, I'm not like big man in the sky, but it's more of like a binding entity that is something bigger than us. Yeah.
Very cool. I agree. What do you think of this new like push towards like being gifted, spiritual, a witch, pagan, like wherever you want to throw it? Like people, do you think there's this many people that truly are?
Yeah, is it like a shift in? Like,
is it a shift, or is it just like you said, aesthetic?
I think it's both. I think there is definitely a shift in the consciousness of some humans. Like we're definitely there's always been humans who are looking for their fullest potential. I think for the first time in human history, well, our known human history, we have time to figure it out. You know, we don't have to work our asses off just to survive anymore. And so I think for like the past 100 years, we've kind of been like, well, what now? You know? And I think for those of us who don't subscribe to a specific religion that kind of prescribes everything for you, you're like, well, now I got to figure it out for myself. And I think there are more people taking that on. As far as witchcraft, I think for the first time, especially in the past 20 years, you can actually be like, I'm a witch or I'm a magical being and not be expelled from society.
Yeah.
Or you don't really have to hide it. And so that's definitely created like a lot more, especially with like, I think TikTok and stuff like that. There's a whole, like the millennials are really embracing the aesthetic, but I think they forget that how much work goes into it. The same as like learning any religion or any kind of study that you want to take on to be a part of your life. You have to do the work. And I think a lot of them are like, I'm a witch now and I don't like you, so I'm going to make a puppet of you and put needles in it and
I'm going to stick you in the freezer.
And it's like, oh, don't do that. Like that's real bad vibes. And like you don't want to put that out there. I mean, there are people who are like that and they would have done it no matter what, but now they're kind of doing it in the name of magic or witchcraft, and I think that's dangerous and you got to watch that stuff. Like I don't do anything like that. I would never do something like that, but there are witches who do that, and there are definitely magical lineages and religions that do that kind of stuff, and that's fine, but you also should have had that taught to you, not something that you learned on like TikTok, you know?
Yeah. Because there's all that talk now of like what's like a closed practice, like
sure,
you know, voodoo is a closed practice.
Yeah,
and, you have no business getting into that unless it's in your lineage.
Yeah, and there are white people who are accepted in those, but it's more like someone who has spent so much time like studying voodoo or hoodoo or, you know, Native American magical cultures, that then they're invited in and like they're brought in, and then that's fine, but you also you can't just take those things for yourself. You don't want to do that. That's negative anyway. It's like showing up at someone's house like, hey, I live here now, and it's like, well, no, you don't. you know, like, so but that doesn't mean you can't learn about them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I'm super fascinated by all the magical cultures. My husband grew up in the former Soviet Union, and his family, his father is Ukrainian and his mother is ethnic Tajik, which is the country now is called Tajikistan. And they're a Muslim nation, but they have a long history of like other religions. They were Buddhists for a long time. They had Zarathustra, and they just have magic like woven into their culture. And it's truly fascinating. And I've been trying to learn a lot more about it, but at the same time, it's like, well, it'll be there I want to know it for my kids. Like when my kids if they want to pick up the torch, I want them to know about it, because I'm not sure how much like his family will be around to teach him about it, but it's not for me. It's not something that I can be a part of in that way. I can learn as much as I want, and hopefully someday I could go see something of that nature, but I can't be like, well, I'm this now, For me, I'm like, my heritage is Celtic and like Norse. Those are the kind of paths that I follow, as well as kind of like, we call it like holler magic, because most of my family is from West Virginia. Originally, my family's been in the U.S. since the Revolution, so like very American. So those are the paths that I'm choosing to follow, and it definitely, I think that's kind of the best thing you can do when you want to get into magic, is to pursue your personal historical connections to magic if you have them.
And every culture has it. I mean, it's just the same with religion. Like, it's all very, very similar. It's like, she and I talked about this a lot. Like, we both went down the rabbit hole probably at that age, like 15, where you're like, I want to explore religions. Like, what makes things so different? And then you start reading and you're like, they're all the same.
Yeah,
like,
I remember taking a college class. I forget which one it was, but it was down at WVU, and it was like the first time I really like learned about like Hinduism and Buddhism, and I was like seeing all the same things that I learned in Christianity growing up, and I couldn't believe all the crossover.
Yeah,
and it was just so interesting to actually like. I wish they would have taught us that more, like in school and stuff.
I think it would just be so beneficial, because there'd be a whole hell of a lot less fighting if it's just like, hey, this is your structure of beliefs, this is my structure of belief, but we're all going in the same direction. Like, it's cool. And
instead of it being so separate, because that's what it felt like to me personally. Like I always felt like they were so different. Like you were taught that, like,
oh yeah, because if you went from a Protestant church to a Catholic church, you better not do the same shit. Like, we don't do that way. That's not how that goes down. But like, I mean, I went to a Catholic school until middle school age, and you had your religious influence too. Like, that never stuck with me. Never stuck with me, didn't vibe out with me, like never, I just didn't get it.
It didn't affect you at all the same way that it did
no,
me.
And you got like the
very,
what do we call it? Like the religious like doom and fear of like existential crisis because of it. But yeah, you start looking at these things, and the same thing with spirituality. There are similarities, and I mean, I don't identify as anything really, but I feel like that earth-based, ritualistic, spiritual, I just feel like that's just kind of how it should be. Like, that's just, I don't see why that, like, we could just be that. It's cool. Like, let's vibe out with this.
Yeah.
But I think if everybody just took a step back and was like, oh, I see this, and it's all,
or at least
very
just like
similar.
learn. It doesn't hurt. Like, you're not hurting your own beliefs by learning other beliefs.
Well, it's so taboo. You say witch, and it's like, ooh, super spooky. When really, it's like, no,
a lot of the holidays and stuff, right? That's what you taught me. I didn't really know
your
a lot of that.
Your intention with food, or your intention with preparing like your jewelry. Like, it's just like, okay, we would tell everybody like positive vibes. Well, you can manifest and have your positive vibes cooking your dinner, just like you can manifest and have positive vibes while you're worshiping in church. But we're just not ready for that conversation as a collective. But I mean, I'm ready for that conversation, but piss a lot of people off.
Now, you kind of mentioned your husband, and I know you talked to me before. How long have you guys been married? Because I think that's incredible.
We've been married for 15 years.
That's
and
great.
we've been together for 17 years.
Wow.
So how'd you guys meet?
He was the RA in my dorm building. When my first year of college, I went to Edinburgh University, which is up by Lake Erie.
Yeah, I had a couple friends go there.
Okay, he was the RA in my dorm building. The first thing he ever said to me was, "Do you live here?" And I was like, I can't believe he doesn't know that I live here. But my roommate, I was a freshman, she was a sophomore, so she like knew the lay of the land, and she was hot stuff. So there were always guys coming to our room to like talk to her and stuff. And one day this Polish guy, Lucas, came, and he was cool and we were having a fun time. Then the next time he came, he brought Anton because they were friends. Which Edinburgh is like a really small school, so like all of the international students all like always hung out together, but they're from all different countries, you know, but Lucas being from Poland spoke Russian, so they would speak Russian together, and they would do that in front of us, and we knew they were talking about us. But that's how we met. And I moved to Pittsburgh the next year, and he stayed there, so we kind of commuted back and forth for the next couple of years, just being there in Pittsburgh at the same time, different times, because he's 5 years older than me. He was doing his, well, you know, when you come here from any other country, even if you did college, like where you're from, that doesn't count. So he kind of was having to do his undergraduate again, and then he has a master's degree as well. So, and we were together for 10 years, and then we started having kids. Now we got 50 birds and 50 rabbits and have a homestead.
Yeah, because I love how you're like, well, we just did everything ass backwards.
Yeah,
that's the best way to do things.
We just partied for the first 10 years, got it out of our system, and then had kids. Yeah, whereas most people have kids like first. But
So what's the secret to longevity, do you feel like?
growing together is the biggest thing. You can't stay stagnant in a relationship, and like we definitely had a lot of emotional growing up to do, but we were able to balance that and do it together instead of one going off doing their own thing, one going off doing the other thing. The other thing is that we've always enjoyed doing things together, and we do a lot of different things together. So like he's always been interested in sports, like he does weightlifting. So for a long time, like I would do it too, and I was horrible at it and stuff, and I was weak as shit. But like I would go to weightlifting events, and I would, you know, meet all his friends and just become involved in it. And then like he's super into motorcycle racing, so like he would go to the track and I would go with him. And then we both got into watching motorcycle racing, and like I'm like that's one of my secrets that like nobody knows about me, but I'm like a rabid motorcycle racing fan.
Really?
Yeah. And like I could talk to anybody from like Spain about the best Spanish like motorcycle racers. Like I know all about it. But it's like that's not relevant for any other part of my life except that time with my husband, you know? And then like you guys were super into nature. Like we've always gone hiking and camping, and we've always been into the same things. We both really like sci-fi. So when like the new sci-fi movie comes out, like we get it and then we'll like talk about it for like a week afterwards. Aww. And like, we'll be like, well, do you think this meant this? Cause I think this meant this, you know? And so just that kind of thing. And then we were together long enough when we had kids that when we had kids, we had already kind of worked out what we wanted having kids to be like. So that's then awesome. As parents, we're both really on the same page, and that makes a huge difference too. Plus, I still think he's really hot, and that helps. Like, I still am like, every time he walks by, I'm like, nice ass.
So what I'm hearing is you like and love your husband.
I do, yeah.
We like and love each other too.
Yeah, we like each other. Do you ever like see couples and you're just like, how the fuck do you get it? You don't like each other?
We've had so many like couple friends. They would be like a good friend of one of ours, and then they'd get married, and then we'd be friends as a couple, and then you just watch their relationship like go downhill, and you're like, who are we picking? Which one are we keeping?
Which is like so terrible.
It is,
like,
yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, no, definitely. You're with friend. We'll be with another couple, and the way that they even speak to each other, I'm like, how could you ever speak to your partner that way? And you know, we fight. We're normal. We're not like perfect or whatever. I don't think nobody is, but like you have to have a certain amount of respect for your partner.
Yeah, that's the one thing me and you always say is like we've never let it get to that disrespectful like yelling in each other's face type of
like I wholeheartedly believe that when you can disrespect your partner, you are done.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
You are done. And like just the first second you feel comfortable to lay a hand, push, get up in someone's face, or you're just like, you're done.
Even
You
just constant
need to be
negativity,
done.
because it's like, how can you like grow together?
Yeah, if you realize you're on the same team and you're going towards the same goal, like you should be able to work through that and not have to like go against each other.
I
so
think one of the
harshly.
things that has worked for us so well is when we do have fights, it's generally about accountability. Like we said we were going to do this, like what broke apart, and we haven't done this thing that we both decided was important to us. And then we kind of have to like, you know, we'll do the same thing where we'll be like, I don't, you know, I'm going to fight about it. But then a little bit later, I'll be like, okay, well, let's really talk with the, you know, why we're not doing this thing that we both wanted to do. And now you're disappointed, or I'm disappointed because we didn't end up doing that thing. Or
But you're
whatever.
able to communicate about it.
Yeah, and we understand, like,
Yeah.
after time, the underlying thing maybe wasn't even about that thing, but you have to just be open, and that's the biggest thing. And you also have to be like able to take a break if you need to. Like, where I'm someone who always likes being by myself, and I never get to be by myself ever. And so every once in a while he'll be like, do you want to go to Walmart or something and just go like
Aw.
do your thing?
I'm gonna kiss your face
Yeah,
so hard
exactly.
when I get back.
Yeah. Whereas he's like never. We would be together all the time, and he would be with the kids like all the time. Like, he doesn't need that. And so,
Yeah.
but he recognizes that. And I recognize like he needs a lot of like verbal affirmations, but in the sense of like, you look hot today, you know, he needs that. So like every day I'm like, even if I'm not in the mood to like tell him how great he is, I'm like, I gotta tell him he's great today, you know.
Aw, that's
because
cute.
he like, that's part of something that he needs. So again,
And
you
you
learn that over
recognize it,
time.
yeah.
You recognize what your partner needs, and because you're partners, you have to do those things. That's,
Yeah, even if that might not be,
to.
you might not need those words of affirmation, but you recognize that he does. So being in that, I feel like that's awesome. That's definitely a recipe for success.
Yeah, for sure.
That's emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
which most of us lack.
Well, you
until, you know, way later
you
in
also
life,
you
if ever.
can't just take, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens in a lot of relationships. Like, you meet someone wonderful, and I've realized at times I would do that, and I'm sure he would say the same thing. You know, I would just be like, well, I need this from you, and because I'm me, and I can only think about what I need, you know. But you have to get over that at some point, because it's like the two of you, the synergy of the two of you is the important thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just be by yourself, you know, instead of like messing up this other person's life in that way.
What do you mean
know?
we can't torture along the way?
Well,
A
you
little bit.
can if you want to, but maybe don't marry that person.
Yeah, don't.
Now
do
you
it.
have 2 children?
Yeah, 2
And you
daughters.
homeschool them, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
How does that work have you been doing that their whole life?
Yeah.
Or
Well, yeah, Rora's only 7, so she's technically in 2nd grade, and Raven's really just like pre-K. But it's amazing. Like, if you can do it, I recommend it, because like my daughter, especially Rora, is like incredibly artistic, and so we get schoolwork done in like 2 hours, because when you have a 2nd grader, they don't need to be in school for 8 hours a day, in my opinion. And so then she has so much time to go work on what she's into. And
That's
so
awesome.
I'm hoping as she grows older, she'll definitely be able to continue doing that. And she gets like a lot more, we can focus more on the things that she's interested in and just get done the stuff that needs to get done. So like, she's really interested in electronics. So my husband, he is working on electronics with her, but she's like very artistic. So she'll create these like creatures, and then they'll wire them up so that like they light up or they like shake or whatever.
That
and
is
like
so cool.
the other day she just made one by herself. Like, she completely wired a creation that lit up and all sorts of stuff. She's 7.
That's
and
awesome.
she can do electronics already, you know?
Wow.
And it's like, well, if she was in school all day, is she gonna want to come home and do that? Probably not, you know?
Do you think we're really like doing a disservice to our kids with the way that the education system is? Go, get in there, go for
Do
it.
you really want to alienate all of your listeners right now?
Listen, I don't care. Get uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable.
This is
Yeah.
what this podcast
Yeah.
is for.
I do. I mean, how much time did all of us spend in school, and how much do you remember of what you learned in school? Like,
Or that you actually cared about.
yeah.
Or that you actually use.
And we all know that, I mean, I don't want to get too far out there, but we know that the school system is used to indoctrinate children into learning a specific way and learning specific things. And maybe you don't want your kids to learn those things, or maybe it's not the best way for your child to learn either. Like I said, Rora's amazing at math and science and that kind of thing. Reading and writing's not strong for her right now. But I don't want her to worry about that right now. She's going to learn how to read. It's not a problem. It just might take her a little bit longer than someone else. But now she's not sitting in school beating herself up over not being as quick as everybody else when she's amazing at all this other stuff. I think there are better ways for kids to learn things than they do in school. And I think they don't get enough attention from their educators. And also these days schools are kind of, I don't know,
Mini prisons.
hot messes. Yeah. And I mean, some people have to send their kids to school. I totally understand that. Like, there are a lot of places where both parents work. That's just kind of how it has to be. But I think parents are far too comfortable just letting the school system teach their kids and not having any idea about what they're learning, how they're learning, and those kinds of things. You know, even when I went to school, I feel like there was a lot more on offer, especially like in high school and stuff. There was like a really good technical school, like with my high school. It was like you could learn how to be a mason before you even graduated with this technical school.
That's awesome.
I had a friend who did that, and he still has his own masonry company now, and he never even had to go to college. He never had to do anything. I think a lot of the current system is set up to funnel people into universities, or you kind of get left behind, you know? And I think we can also say now universities are kind of pretty much a scam too, you know, unless you're going for something very specific that you know that you want. Like my husband went for IT. That worked really well for him. He's really good at his job. He's really smart. Like when he got out of college, he got headhunted. He never had to apply for a job. Like he would have like 5 job offers and he would pick which one he wanted. I've never been through anything like that in my life. I've always been like, please hire me. Give me money, you know? And, so I don't think we set our kids up for success in that way. Like one of the things we want is for them to graduate early so they can spend time job shadowing. They can just try different things that maybe they want to try. And then if they want to go to college, they can go to college. But we never want them to be like, I have to go to college when I'm 18 years old, because I think most people went to college for something that maybe they're not using, or they've gone back to school again, you know? Yeah, it's not weird. I'm sure most of the people that you're listening to understand that, you know? Yeah. So I think there's got to be a different way, whether it's homeschooling or it's changing the system, or a private school, going to a Montessori school. There's lots of options, but right now homeschooling is, for me, the easiest and the best one.
What do you say to, because I know some of the naysayers that say, what about the socialization aspect?
Yeah, that's definitely like the first thing people bring up to you. And when you guys finally meet my kids, you'll be like, there's no problem with that. I think that actually has more to do with the parents. If the parents are not social people, then the kids might not be either. But Anton and I are both very social. Like and my kids do stuff. They go to dance class. We're very involved in the library where we live. Like and they have tons of friends. They do lots of stuff.
So like they're hoarding in their house and never getting out.
And my kids are very comfortable talking to all kinds of people. Like when you meet them, they'll just talk to you like you're regular people. They're not going to be like, you're a grown up, I have to talk to you differently, you know? My daughter is the first person to, if there's another kid in this space, she'll just walk right up to him and be like, hey, I'm Rora, what's your name? You know, like that's not a problem. Again, I think it comes more to the parents. And if the parents are teaching their kids how to interact with other human beings, then they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I like the homeschool idea if it's something possible. But I know so many teachers too, and they're frustrated with.
Sure.
They're super. I've not met a single teacher that's like, yep, totally cool, totally love everything that we're doing. And it's so unfair to watch that they have to do these things to get funded. Mm-hmm. They have to play these games, and they know that they suck. They know that the kids are burnt out. Like I heard the other day, which blew my mind, there was a client, we were talking, and they were talking about preschool and kindergartners coming home with homework.
That's crazy.
So first and foremost, you know damn well that kid's not doing the homework. Their parents are doing it. So you take a parent that probably has a 40-hour plus work week. They're going to come home and try to like decompress, and it's like, no, time out. You have to do a full-blown fucking project with your kindergartner. Like, that's insane to me that I feel like there should be zero homework until, like, maybe high school.
Yeah.
Like, it just blows my mind because these kids are so stressed out. It is all school, and then they take everything fun away, like recess. Forget that. Fuck that. That's the first thing they punish kids with.
Yeah.
Like, remember being in school and they'd be like, you guys were bad at lunch. It's time off of your recess. Like, yeah, they were bad at lunch. Give them 5 extra minutes. Blow that shit out of their system.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It makes me crazy, and I just feel so bad for kids that are in the normal systems of things, because it sucks unless you set like Montessori schools, private schools, charter schools, where there's a little wiggle room with things.
Yeah. But that's so hard. Like, people learn at just such different ways and levels. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's really only for, like you said, funneling people who test well, follow direction well, quick learners, and you just go. And that's definitely not for everybody, like, at all. Like, I hated school. I hated it every step of the way.
Well, with what you said about homework too, I actually don't think kids should ever get homework at any age. I mean, you're going to school for 8 hours a day, then you go home for another 2 hours. You got to do your homework. Then you got to sleep for 7 to 8 hours. So how many hours in a day do you have to do anything you want to do?
And don't forget, if you're like a student athlete, you're expected to stay after school and practice for a couple hours, or, you know, all that shit, which is I just want to know what adult like thinks about this and is like, oh yeah, that's completely proper.
Yeah,
and for like a child.
And they keep taking away like anything creative in school as well. They just cut that out of that budget.
Fuck that. You don't need that at all. Like, I really feel bad for kids. I think it's awesome that you're doing the homeschool. Plus, you could teach them, like, you can follow the curriculum and then be like, all right, I'm gonna tell you the real story of this. Like, this is forget everything that I just said. And I think that's really important.
I agree. And it's definitely been like nice for us to edit things out too that I don't think they necessarily need to know at this point in their life. And it, like, as far as religion, back to that too, like, my kids they don't know who Jesus is. Like, they literally had, like, a friend of theirs was telling them about Jesus, and my daughter came up to me and she's like, have you heard of this guy? And I was like, yeah, I know, like, I like Jesus, he's fine, you know, I don't have a problem with him. But that's kind of off on a tangent. But there are other things. It's like, I don't know if my second grader needs to know about war yet, you know. So it's kind of like, we'll save that for a little bit later, you know.
I've heard other parents talk about that, like, with either their community or families where religion is introduced, and then, you know, they're like, I don't want my kid introduced to this, and not for any other reason. Like, when they're old enough, they can decide, like, whatever you want to do, but, like, it's freaking them out. Like, you're going to make them believe that there's this man in the sky that's watching you and is going to punish you for everything you do. Like, I mean, mental illness much, you know, neurotic personalities. And I'd never thought about it like that. And I was like, that's really cool that these parents are like, we're not against it. We just want our kids to, like, mature on their own, and then they can pick whatever religion that they want, that they feel inclined to follow. Yeah. I'm like, that's great. That would be so amazing.
It wouldn't be cool to have, like, made that decision for yourself and not have it been, like, something that was so pushed down your throat. Like, I remember when I got confirmed when I was 13, I think, or 15, I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, I knew in my heart it wasn't for me. And at that point in time, I didn't know if I was an atheist or whatever, but I knew it wasn't right. And I was like, I shouldn't be making a commitment to this religion because I know it's false. Even then I knew it, you know? But when you push young children onto it, even, it's like, then you move forward in your life, like, just being molded by that way of thinking, and then maybe you hit a different part of your life and you're like, what was all that about, you know? But it's already kind of too late, you know?
You already had an effect on you. I definitely feel that.
Still have issues with it. Like, there's still a lot of hiccups and bumps,
and still, like, I think a lot of the guilt that I've experienced in my adulthood definitely came from that fear of, like, am I doing the right thing? Is this wrong? Am I going to be punished? Like, so definitely I still struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah, which is wild to me. Like, to see it, I'm just like, really? That's what stayed with you? Like, that's what you got?
Well, that's why
like,
you guys are, again, go
Yeah.
back to the couple thing. That's why you're a good couple, because you can then, like,
Bounce each other out.
yeah. Like, my husband grew up in an interreligious, like, household. So he was just always like, well, religion's stupid. You know, like, you don't want anything. Like, he lived in a half Christian, half, like, Russian Orthodox, half Muslim household. And it was just like,
damn.
But this was also, like, when he was younger, it was during the Soviet Union. So there was no religion, you know, it was like the state was the religion. But then as soon as the Soviet Union fell, then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this matters again. And so he has always been like, I don't want that to affect my children, because it's just so hard. It can be so hard on them. And me growing up in Christianity, like, I think I always had a strong sense of self. So for a long time, I was just like, I'm going to take the pieces that I like and just forget the pieces that I don't like. And, but then at some point I had to, like, make a cognitive break.
And that's
from
what I
it.
think it's good for people who are like that. I think myself personally, I definitely didn't have that strong sense of self, and I wasn't taught that very well. I didn't have very much self-awareness. So I think it's a lot harder for people who are like that growing up to not separate themselves so much from it.
And it's a safety thing.
Yeah.
Because you're like, if I do these things that the people told me is what I need to do, and then I am a good person and I get to go to heaven when I die, because everybody's scared of death. I think a lot of religion stems from fear of death, you know, and also religion's obviously been used since the beginning of time to control people. So all of them, you know, but it definitely is a safety thing, especially if you're the kind of person who isn't, you know, self-aware. It's like, well, if I just do this, then I don't have to worry about stuff. And it's like, well, that is nice. We all want that.
Yeah, but
you
that's
know?
so dissociative and dismissive.
Of course.
Like, I am gonna, like, go home and mentally abuse my wife and beat my kid's ass, but I'm gonna go to church on Sunday and dress nice,
And I'm forgiven.
and it's all forgiven, all gone.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, I think that is always.
We'll have to have another episode where we just talk about the hypocrisy of the Catholic Church.
Listen, oh my God! Like, listen, no disrespect to anyone who believes in the religion. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah,
and it
no.
works for some people. It really,
Absolutely.
truly, like, if I feel like everyone is so different in just what you're called to do. Like, I'm not going to disrespect someone else's feelings if that brings them happiness.
And
Of
if someone's,
course.
like, really devout in their faith, and as long as they're not being a prick about it,
Yeah.
like, I think it's beautiful.
I just
love
hate that pushy, like.
But when
let's-
someone is
yeah.
just
No
very-
one wants
they're
that.
very passionate about it. Like you're gonna know who I'm talking about. Like someone we know, they're just so sweet and innocent in their approach about it, and it's just nothing but positive, good vibes. And, you know, like, I'm gonna say a prayer for you, like, and that you feel it. Like, this is with positivity and good intention, and that's what you can respect. And it makes it like, oh, okay, I like to see this aspect of
Yeah.
it, because they're living in it. And
Again, it's that intention thing.
Yes,
like, they're
it's-
living with positive intention.
Yes.
And that's anybody who does that. It doesn't matter what their belief system is, as long as they're walking through the world from a positive aspect, you know. I think that,
and that's rare, I think, to find in religion. Super, super rare. But when you do, you're like, I mean, for me personally, I'm like, oh, goddamn, like, I'm not talking about you. Like, you're fantastic. This is great. Like,
Yeah.
I will listen to you talk about your religion all day long, because you're so passionate about it. But that's super rare. Like, we live, like, catty corner to that church, and I'm just like, this is
they're
hilarious.
watching you guys.
Oh, hell yeah, they are. Fucking
Our
rainbow
gay
flag
flag.
up. I'm half naked in the summer months.
200 plants outside.
Yes.
Hippies.
It's yeah, but it's funny to watch people walk out of church and, like, bicker with their spouse, or, like, yell at their kids, or, like, I see it, and I'm just like,
We've had some cool things. Do you remember that one time we got that little note that we framed?
Yes.
Someone, like, saw our rainbow flag that we had hanging outside and just, like, wrote us this. I'm like, oh, this is going to be bad. It was this, like, sweet little thank you. It brightened my day. Thank you for having that up. And we framed it and, like, kept it in
and it
our
was just like a
house.
ripped
It was just like
piece
a random
of, like,
person.
paper. It
Yeah.
was so cool. I'm like, oh shit. Like, I really was, expecting living that close to a Catholic church. I'm like, this is
Someone's going to burn our
This
flag.
is going to be really interesting. We'll see how this goes down. But no, it wasn't bad. Real quick, I want to say thank you.
I know.
Oh, you're welcome.
For our beautiful gift. And like, I cannot wait to get in that book. And I know we're at an hour, but I'm going to break a rule because I do. We didn't get into this, and it's very important.
And I do got to ask her finishing
You do
question
have to,
after you're
but
done with that.
this is my wand.
Yes.
Herbalism. Do you consider yourself like a practitioner of drawn to, like, are you?
If someone asked me like what type of witch I was, which I don't think there is like a lot of, there's different types of magic, but I think if you just accept magic into your life, you're a witch. But I'd say I'm like a green witch, or I'm definitely very closely related to the earth. Gardening's my thing. That's what I do. And
That's another thing you two connected with
yeah.
on social
Sweet
media for
Jesus.
sure.
and
We got salsa. I can't wait. It's gonna be so good.
But herbs for sure. Herbalism is very it's another thing you could spend your whole life learning herbalism. But I definitely follow like the teachings of Rosemary Gladstar. She's kind of one of the OGs of the herbalism movement coming out of the 70s. And Mary Blue is another herbalist. She has a great Instagram account. She makes like very TikTok style videos about herbalism. So you would love her. But I'm learning a lot from them right now. But yeah, I definitely practice herbalism. I use herbs in my daily life for health and wealth, and
Yeah, look, I love the mullein. You know how like
Oh, you
remember
do
the
love
mullein
mullein.
and it sticks. I'm
Yeah.
like, look, there's the mullein.
Yeah,
And
the wax is from my husband's bees. He keeps bees,
Oh,
so
that's
that's from
so
our bees.
sweet.
Yeah.
it smells so good. It smells
And I've had your salsas, amazing, because I remember at Maria's event,
Yeah.
we got some of that. That was so
So I brought
good.
you more,
Thank
and that's
you.
all from my garden.
that is so
so
special.
sweet.
And that is just so, like something from a garden, from someone's garden. It's always better.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
nothing
yeah.
like
It's always better.
I'm like, I don't need presents. Give me canned goods.
Yes, give me plants, give me
Give
canned
me
goods.
something in a mason jar.
Jars. Are you a hoarder of jars?
Oh yeah, especially
She is,
like
too.
last year when you couldn't get them. Like
Oh yeah, because everybody was dabbling in canning.
everybody was like, oh, it's COVID, so I'm gonna learn how to can food now.
Wait, time out. Are we allowed to go to an hour and yes, we're going over.
Let's keep on the
Okay,
gardening
I know we're gonna
subject.
stay there, but like we're going over. I have like this. Cool,
That's okay,
Okay,
yeah.
fuck it. We got really important things to talk about. How like with your gardening, and if I'm just a crazy person, then that's cool. But do you ever feel like time completely disappears when you're in the garden?
Oh yeah,
Like 100%, you are in a completely different space, and it could be 7 a.m. 1 minute and 7 p.m. the next, and you're like, where did this time
yeah.
go?
I honestly, I'm not sure I would have gotten through like the pandemic if I wasn't a gardener, because it was just like, I've just been, full of rage for 2.5 years. So I just go in the garden and I'm like with my plants, and I feel so much better. And there's also just something so gratifying about raising food, especially, or flowers as well. But this year was the first year I ever grew sweet potatoes, and like I put a sweet potato in the ground and it came back 4 months later and I had 10 sweet potatoes, and it was just like, now that's magic. Like it's just like one of those things where I can't even describe how fulfilling it is. Like I've done potatoes before, but this year I did a whole bunch of different kinds of potatoes, and I like walked inside with my big trug of potatoes and I was like, look what I did, honey. And he was like, wow.
Like that's a lot of potatoes.
Yeah.
Like
we
the
love
canning,
potatoes.
the canning is cool to me. I just like, I know myself, and like I don't want to even like crack that can of worms, because I am like the jars. Who knows what's in the jar? Pick it up, look at it. At your own
bug,
risk. It's usually, who the fuck knows what's in the jar? But I do try to be better about like, putting things in the jar. But I know with canning, I would just be all over the damn place, and there'd be even more jar. Like I'm not disciplined enough to do the whole
It's a lot of
procedural, and like I think it's great, but that is just a level.
You've been dehydrating though and using
Yeah, just
That's
like
good.
the herbs and stuff, and I like having that stuff on hand. But You love that I collect jars.
I do.
Like the Wii. Do you ever have the Wii yogurt?
Yes.
Do
Those
you
little
keep the jars?
I have, but I gave them to a friend who makes like macrame things out of them. But do you want me to save them for you? From
No,
now?
fuck no. I gotta start throwing away. Like
Crystal's like, no.
like, fuck these jars. Yeah, like when we brought.
We do not need any.
We brought on the plate.
jars.
You're like, Sarah, you've got to do something with these jars because that's me. I'm like, save that jar. Where'd that jar go? Like, Britt, and she's like, don't you have an? I'm like, no.
Well, the great plant bring-in experience that we have to do at the start of winter, she has to bring her 200 plants outside, inside. Then you realize real quick how much room you assess and have to give away different plants and stuff. We're at that time.
You see, it's like
Yeah, you got a lot of plants. Jungle. A lot.
a jungle house.
And I have a lot, but I don't have that many.
Well, if you brought them in, you probably would. You know.
No, I have like a lot of house plants too. But no, I have so many plants outside. I can't take my house plants outside.
No.
I mean, that's just too much work. I can't do that.
Listen, it's just one time. You take them out.
Well, I did this year. I started doing fruit trees. So I have a lemon tree, a lime tree, and a kaffir lime tree, and a bay leaf tree.
You got to get a kumquat tree.
I got a curry leaf tree, which is amazing. I just like put my face in it, and it just smells so good. Yeah.
See, I let the lemon tree die. I gave up. I just
It had some
sacrifice.
lemons. that
Yeah,
were
it just was a
almost-
sacrifice.
Just wasn't doing good.
I just I just wasn't in love. And then this is the third time that I've tried eucalyptus, and I fucking kill it every
I've never tried
time.
that yet.
Terrible. Killed it. I went to go water today, and I'm like, oh, it looks so pretty, and like it's completely dry to a crisp, but it looks like pristine. And I'm like,
I'll just keep those then.
yeah, I did. I kept it. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna move you over in this corner, and you'll smell like.
Well, isn't that what
eucalyptus
people
over
always
here.
say? They're like, oh, I wish I could garden, or have plants, but I don't have a green thumb. And I'm like, I
Yes.
don't have a green thumb. I just keep doing it over and over again
Yeah, like
until it works.
it's trial and error. Like our garden this year suffered because
it was
my
a hard year this year too.
Well, it fucking sucked. I swear my peppers didn't start growing until
And the chickens had a
end of
nice
September.
feast.
The chickens feasted.
Like half the cucumbers were like eaten
Yeah,
off.
I
Oh,
kept
yeah.
seeing the blooms, and I'm like, I know
you can't let the chickens in the garden.
No, well, that was where I fucked up and got lazy, and I like fenced around 3/4 of the garden box. But that last quarter, it just wasn't going back to Lowe's that day, and then it was like not a priority. So they,
Yeah, you're like, they're staying out of it. And I'm
yeah,
like,
right. They would like be teetering.
When
on the
they
top.
find it, then they will never stop going.
No,
That's
but-
exactly what
And then,
happened.
oh my god, we bought all these beautiful tomato plants, and the only tomatoes that grew beautifully were the fucking tomatoes in the compost. How beautiful! I mean, lush, full.
Yeah, none in the
luscious.
garden box.
I had a
but the-
cucumber out of the compost pile this
So
year
I'm like,
too.
all right.
You got those giant pumpkins too out of the compost. Like one was like,
in the front yard.
That is so
Because
good.
I was filling my flower box, and it was a mystery squash, and it was pumpkins.
so we just let it grow. It was like down half of our yard.
That's awesome.
It was great. The neighbors.
It was
loved
like all summer long too.
Yeah, I mean, it was a beautiful plant. It was beautiful. But I'm like everybody that I would talk to, and I was like secretly seeking that validation. I'm like, are your plants doing okay?
Yeah.
How's your garden
Me too.
doing? Like,
Because it was so hard this year with the weather was so wonky here. Like
That late
tomatoes didn't
frost.
really work for me. And it would be wet and then hot.
yes.
And then wet again. And it was like nothing ever got a chance to dry out. So it was all like I did amazing with squash this year, but like tomatoes, cucumbers, that didn't go so hot. Plus my family eats produce like my daughter will eat like 7 cucumbers in a day. So it's like
So you
they
can't-
never even get in the house. They just walk
can't even keep
outside.
up.
Yeah.
Did you ever get into the foraging stuff?
Yeah, totally.
I thought you liked that too.
I like to.
We just started getting into that.
You
this
saw
year, and we love it.
my MILF mug. I want that.
oh my god, I thought you. I feel like I have to have it.
Me too. I need
have
one
to
too.
have it.
It says MILF and it says mushrooms I'd like to forage. And then it has mushrooms
It's
on
so
it.
cute. Like that gets me excited for seasons. Like
Yes.
I try to look at and appreciate the seasons, and because I'm gonna bitch right now because it was like beautiful and now it's snowing, but I try to look at it as like I appreciate the change. Like growth needs rest, and like we're gonna look at this and it's gonna be cool, but now I'm like, I can't wait till spring so we can go look for this shit.
Yeah.
Like I can't wait. Like that makes me so excited.
Yeah. You can still do mushrooms in the winter too. There will still
Really?
be mushrooms in the winter. Yeah. Especially on like more temperate, like it's in the 30s and it's not covered in snow. There's still some out there.
Which around here, that's usually how the winter months are.
Yeah, exactly. What you're saying about the seasons, though, it's like something I actually had when it frosted the other night. Finally, I had like almost a mental break of like, oh, I don't have to go out there and do that thing anymore that I do all day, every day when it's in season, you know? And especially for witches, like winter is an important time because winter's kind of when you do your work on yourself because you are inside more and it's dark more than light. And it's like it's when you kind of take that time to like rest and also like focus inward on yourself. And then the rest of the year, we're like, the hills are alive with the sound of music because it's beautiful outside, you know, and I got to go revel in the earth's beauty. Whereas like, this is actually kind of like your time to like be quiet, be with yourself, find mental rest, which for me is like almost impossible. But so I really try and take this time of year as like allowing myself to do that, you know, just maybe sit and do nothing. Like
it's okay.
Yeah, especially like today when the snow was falling, I just kind of sat in my, we have a sunroom. I just sat on my couch and like looked out at the snow. And it's like, I don't think I've spent this long doing nothing in 9 months.
Which by the end of gardening season, you're done.
Oh, you're so ready.
You're over it.
Isn't it true with gardening? Like your very first tomato, you like walk around, you take pictures of it. You're like, look what we have. And then at the end of the season, you're like, well, this one isn't perfect. Fuck it. You throw that in the compost pile. You're like,
don't care about
Sorry,
it
I didn't
anymore.
ask if we could swear.
Yeah, you can.
Oh,
okay.
Listen,
that was Sarah's first question.
Because I was like, there's a couple other podcasts that we listened to, and there would be like this little time box at the bottom, and it was like, you know, you had to be good for this long. And I'm like, do I have to wait to cuss? And like they're like, no, go ahead. I'm like, fuck yes. Like I don't know. I like cussing. I really don't care.
Oh, I do too.
I'm not going to censor myself. But anyways, yeah, towards the end of it, you're really lazy with gardening, and you're like, I'm over this. I got enough of this shit. I'm done. But
then I also kind of feel empty.
Yes.
It's gone.
Yeah. I just feel like.
I have a greenhouse, so I dug up like a bunch of crap and just drug it into the greenhouse so I could like have it a little bit longer. And like I dug up zinnias because my zinnias did not start growing until like September. So I don't know why. I think my birds must have come nibbled on them. But I was like, no, we need more time together. And so I dug it up and took it into the greenhouse. And every day I go in there and I'm like, hi.
They're just so pretty. Like, I was so sad when my flowers started to like, you know.
We had some late ones this year.
Well, the cosmos were super late.
I love them.
But we had all these beautiful zinnias, and this is the first year I really grew them.
They're the best.
I don't know. I just never thought, because I was always very big. Like, I'm not doing annuals. I'm not wasting money on annuals. And now
you had all those sunflowers. Remember this year you like planted them everywhere, so they just like popped up.
Literally, just throwing bird seed. Like, let it happen.
We always have strays.
I love that. It's so fun. But when it got cold, I don't even think it frosted. It just got cold, and they just started to shrivel up. And I was like,
oh.
But I'm out there like shaking them to get all the seeds to come off. I'm like falling.
Well, when you have garden too, when you have a garden, you notice the seasons more. Because I'll notice like, this bird is here now and that bird's not normally here. Like we this year had goldfinches everywhere because of our sunflowers.
Yeah, we had a ton of them this year too.
And they're just so fun to watch. Whereas then like, well, they're gone. And then I noticed the other day that the blue jays came back. Like I hadn't seen blue jays for months and months and months. And now that it's gotten cold, I'm like, well, they came back, you know? And even just watching those kinds of things change. And like, bugs, you know, like when the woolly bears came out, it's like, oh, it's fall, the woolly bears are here, you know.
Oh no, it really is, it's happening.
Yeah, but I think, and those are kind of some of the things that I incorporate into like homeschooling. Like we found out, like, did you know that the woolly bear turns into an Isabella tiger moth?
No,
that is what it turns into. I never knew that. I only knew about the caterpillars.
Listen, that was, I think I like mentally was like, I need to look this up, but and then I never did.
Because I think I was asking you a couple of days.
I don't know.
So it was like something that me and my kids would see, and then it was like, well, we can learn about this. We don't have to. We can skip math today. We can go. We can go learn about the Isabella tiger moth. And it's like now I'm 36 years old, and I finally know what a woolly bear turns into. You know, and that's
really cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the like the light stations people set up at night to catch the moths to see them?
A little bit, yeah.
I really wanted to do that
You
this year, and I
should.
forgot.
Yeah,
But
we
like
could.
they'll get the big spotlights and mix up like a mixture of like, you know, like fruit and beer, and so
That's
you're
cool.
hitting it with both light and a food source, and you put a big white sheet up and just fucking see what comes.
Ah.
Like
Yeah.
we have to do that next
all
year.
right, you do it. I'll come over.
Shit,
Yeah,
yes,
it's a
come
party.
over.
Yeah, bug party.
And
Now-
you know what's like, I can tell seasonally too with like the bugs that come out.
Yeah.
Like I know like, oh, these are out. This is what's like I love the June bugs, and I know
too.
everybody hates them, but
I think they're pretty.
I like them.
June bugs in May.
Who was it? The chickens or something that ate them, or the rats?
Oh, it was the rats. That
It was the rats. I forgot about that. Templeton. He used
I
to
would
eat them.
catch them and just be like, I don't know what made it's terrible, but I'm like, here you go. They
Love
went
them.
so
like,
hard
went
on them.
crazy for them.
There were so
so
many
hard.
grasshoppers at the end of the summer, and we would catch them and feed them to the tarantula and the scorpion.
I love that. Like I look forward to, which I noticed when the first year we moved onto our property, it's not that we didn't have that many bugs, but like not as much as there
Yeah,
could be. And now
There's
it
a
is,
lot
You
more.
guys brought them in.
yeah, because I mean, we set the environment. We had like a little like baby garter snakes, and just like I see so many different bugs. I'm like, I have no clue what that is.
Yeah.
Like absolutely no clue what that is either, and it's just so fun to see and look forward to it. But I gotta like mentally prepare myself with the winter.
Well, that I think any gardener knows that like February is when the seed catalogs come
Oh,
out, and
yes.
we're all like, "Look at this seed! I need these seeds."
Oh my god, no! It is
Like,
like
get your hopes up.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause
that's how you can
holding
garden in the
on.
winter is you order your seeds.
yes, you're like looking like I need this, and then they hit you with some bullshit. They're like, sorry, we're not selling these seeds to you right now, only to like people who are buying this mass quantity of shit or whatever.
Oh,
like,
girl, I can give you seeds.
You got the seed hook up
I
now.
do.
but I don't do well like starting them.
Yeah, that is one of the things that has taken me the longest to get good at, and I'm still not that good at it.
No.
Like peppers, I still can't ever really get to grow from seeds, and it's
Throw it in a compost pile. Though.
yeah, exactly. That's the thing that pisses you off, because you're like, I tried so hard to give this like the perfect thing that it needs, and it won't grow, and then over there, not even trying.
I think that's the problem, though. I think we try too hard.
Yeah.
Because anytime that I am like, I need you to do this and like grow and be great, like you're not great. And then if
Yeah.
I like forget about it, like just the other day I picked up a Tupperware container that I don't know. I have no idea what's growing in here. Something I cut the nodes off and stuck it in moss. I don't know. It's going to be a mystery. I don't know how long
Gonna
it's been
find
there.
out.
I have no, but it's
Your
like
science project over
flourishing.
the winter.
flourishing. No fucking clue what it is.
Chaos gardening. I love it.
Now, do you map out your garden?
I try to get better about that. My husband's always like, well, why don't you make a map and plan where you're going to plant things? And I do, and that lasts for like the first month. And then because I succession plant. I don't do one planting. I keep planting stuff throughout the season. And then once I start adding things in, then it's just all bets are off. Right now, I'm really all about getting as much to grow in a small place as I can. So I'm doing a lot of vertical gardening. So I'll grow something up, and then I'll companion it with like an onion, and then I'll throw in like a pole bean, and so it's like, I mean, I have a very big garden, but I still get exponentially more food from it than I would if I was just doing like one thing. When I lived in the city, I had square foot garden beds. They're like raised beds, and I just had a very small backyard, but I would still get a lot of food out of that.
Yeah, I know there's things, and you learn. Like every year, I'm like, don't do that again. Don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like we gotta flop these things out.
Yeah.
And it's cool because it keeps you learning about different things, and you have to stay like very present with it, which you kind of like gardening. A little. You like helping me dig
eating,
shit
yeah.
and do all that.
That's all you need.
I
Yeah.
like the fruit of the labor.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly
Yeah, and I
fine.
like building the things.
Yeah, you build me.
Well, that's perfect.
She built me these beautiful raised boxes, which are like sweet.
That's wonderful.
And
that was fun.
It makes things like super easy. So we're gonna have to like build that fenced in area around them this spring. Your new project.
keep the chickens out.
Now, we could talk forever, I'm sure.
I know. Okay, fine. We're done.
So I'm going to ask you the final question. I just want you to think about one experience or thing that you've been through that maybe someone else out there could be going through, and how it changed or made an impact on your life. Like, what is one thing that you could talk about?
Oh man.
It doesn't have to be anything big or small.
See, don't you wish we were still talking about gardening?
Yeah. When I had my daughter Rora, I was planning a very holistic birth situation. We were going to have her at home. Like, I was going to have a completely natural birth, do the whole shebang, like in our bedroom. I had a midwife. I was very excited. I had a wonderful pregnancy. It went super well the entire time. I was one of those, I'm sure I'll get judgment for this, but I didn't have an OBGYN. I didn't do anything. I had a midwife who came and checked me, but I didn't get ultrasounds. I didn't do any of that stuff. Well, 6 weeks before I was due, I woke up in just like a pile of wetness. And I was like, motherfucker, Anton is going to judge me for peeing the bed. And I was like, but I'm pregnant, so it's fine. So I stand up to kind of like deal with the situation, and water just flowed out of me. And I was like, I said, Anton, I think my water broke. And so my midwife came, and she basically, at the end of the day, I ended up, my water did break. Rora was upside down. She had kicked her foot out, and I had to go have an emergency C-section at McGee, which is like the biggest baby factory in the entire world. And I remember,
That's actually where I was born.
Yeah. Well, I went in, and they like gave me a barcode bracelet, and I looked at Anton, and I was like, I'm just a barcode now. And it was a horrible experience. It was horrible. But if it was 100 years ago, I would have died. Rora would have died. I wouldn't have been here. And she ended up being in the NICU for 3 weeks after that. And it was like very difficult. They kind of also like, we weren't jiving with the medical system. They kind of weren't jiving with us. And so there was like tension around the whole thing. But after 3 weeks, we got to bring her home, and she's the healthiest kid I know. She's 7 years old. She's super happy, super healthy. It honestly, in the big scheme of things, wasn't that big of a deal. But being a Capricorn, I'm the kind of person who I'm like, this is how it's gonna happen. And if it doesn't happen that way, I automatically like get real thrown off. And it's something my husband's always like, because he'll just like change his mind like that. And I'm like, wait, you can't change your mind? We've already decided on this, doing it this way. But so for a long time, I had a lot of guilt about like my body not being what it should have been. Like my body didn't work the way it should have for my daughter, and it didn't work the way that it should have for me and what I wanted. And it turned out that I had like my uterus is all weird, but and I punished myself a lot for it, like mentally. And then I had my second daughter, and I had to have a C-section as well. But everything with that went completely fine. It was not a big deal. I got to take her home right away as soon as I got out of the hospital. And even with that, I was like, then we decided not to have any more kids because I didn't want to go through having C-sections anymore. And in my mind, I'd always thought we were going to have a bunch of kids. And so then I was down on myself for that as well. And I think that's something, especially as women, that we do to ourselves, you know? It's like I should be perfect, or my body should at least do what a woman's body is supposed to do. You know, I'm supposed to make babies.
Well, I think if it was more encouraged to talk about things like this openly, because I think every person that I know that has experienced a pregnancy, you know, the stories are all very similar. Like it's this internalization of like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And everyone's so hush hush.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting better, but it's still like.
But to hear you talk about, it's just like, wow, that's great to like have you share that, because there's just so many women I know they're just gonna be like, oh my God, me too. Like, I know. And that has to be a really crazy feeling. Cause it's like, this is what we're built to do. Right. Like,
and it was, for my husband and I to have kids, it was such a conscious decision. Like, we really like waited and decided. And then it was like, we decided I had a plan what my pregnancy was going to be like. I had a birth plan, you know, all that stuff. And that was like, nope, that's all out the window. If that's what you wanted, too bad, you know? And I felt so out of control. But in the long run, I realized it's like, it must have, I'm not like a big believer in fate or whatever, but it was like, it must have been meant to happen that way, because then I have had conversations like this with other women, and it's like, it's really hard, but you're going to be fine. As long as if you have you and your baby, that's fine. And, you know, women lose babies all the time, and that's so upsetting too, but it's not our fault, you know, and it's just the way of the world. And it kind of made me, now 7 years later, I can look at it and be like, no, your body's miraculous. You get up every day and your body does everything you need it to do, and you're still here, you know? And so I will even have times where I'm like, oh, I wish we had another kid, and so I'll get down on myself about it. And then it's like, no, but you have 2 great kids and you're happy and you're healthy. So you can't ask for more than that. And I don't need anything more than that.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
I really like that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much, Elaine, for being on the podcast.
Thanks for
love
having me.
having you. I'm sure we'll probably have you on again.
You better.
Yes, there's so many more things.
If I even hear about you recording with other people, I'm
Sarah-
gonna show up.
Oh my God.
Sarah could talk for at least 3 or 4 more hours.
Because I feel like we just go. We're
Yeah.
just going.
I love
these
you guys.
conversations.
You're wonderful. It's so fun to talk to you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to harness ourselves. By we, I mean me. And I'm sure you'll be back on
I
way
would love it.
sooner rather than later. Maybe we
Okay.
can do like a Yule special.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about Yule.
Yes, let's do it because I fucking hate Christmas.
Okay.
Except for, you know, when it involves Paige. I love you. But yeah, let's have a Yule special.
Okay.
I'm done. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.